Welcome to ArcisFX Live.
Hello, everyone, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Right, let's have a look what's been going on with crypto this week. So it looks like I'm having a bad hair day. That's not particularly helpful, is it? Right, the problem with having long hair. Right, I hope everyone's had a good week. Some interesting things have been happening in the crypto market. For anyone who's got any questions, please, of course, leave them in the comment section, and I'll get to them. Hi, everybody. Hi, Lola. Hi, MD. Thanks for joining us. It's been a bit of a crazy day for me, so I'm just going to try and run through some charts and have a look at exactly what's going on. But I wanted to start with something quite an interesting conversation I had in the comments section on YouTube earlier in the week. So let's just have a quick look at some of the charts. Let's move down to here. So let's just get Bitcoin off, and we'll hi Emily Trading. We'll have a look at. I just want to talk about SNX. Now, you might be thinking that this is the sort of time where I'll say, look, this was a top altcoin pick, which was posted in a video, and look, it's had 78% gains in a very short period of time. Most YouTubers will be doing that, but thanks, Emily, about my hair. I appreciate it. If you look at it from the sides, it's not as good. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be like, wow, look at this, because the reality is that even though this particular altcoin pick, when we were looking at it, was essentially, if I just try and use the replay function, when we posted this as an altcoin pick, we had this nice breakout, and then we had this perfect retest of this 0.78 zone, and that was your entry point for this trade, and then away it goes. Now, the reality is that was a lot of these tokens which blow up like this don't necessarily give you a higher time frame entrance on these time frames, but SNX did. However, the point I'm getting at is there was a comment in one of the YouTube channels, and somebody clearly had been inspired by the setup, and unfortunately said they entered around here. So they entered essentially at the top. And they asked, the question was, because they're panicking a little bit because they feel like essentially they've come in too high. And the reality is, yes, no one should be coming in at this level. That is ultimately chasing green. And what I said to them was, my best advice would be to, let's just say, I can't remember the exact figure, the exact entry point, but let's just say that this person entered their SNX position after seeing all of these amazing gains and entered around this level. I think that's pretty much where the person entered, right? And this is not a criticism, of course. We've all been there. I've done this. This is how you learn. And I said, essentially, okay, so the price action is retracing a bit, and it's down here. And obviously, there's a bit of panic is setting in, because I'm like, oh my God, I've entered here, not here. What do I do? So my advice was, on the back of the question, is it going to go up higher? I said, well, it could go up higher, but ultimately you don't have the probabilities in your favor coming into a trade up with this significant amount of gains. And therefore, my advice was, you need to put a limit order, sell order, to get out exactly where you got in. So essentially, you've bought in here, and the price action is currently down here at about 1.085. Then set a limit sell order. So if you do get the price action coming back up for maybe a blow off top or something, or even if it does naturally ascend higher, then you'll be able to exit and then reevaluate. Now, if they had done that, then of course they would have exited now, and they would have managed to get out a very awkward position, and irrelevant of the fact that the price action was going higher. But the question was, but I think it's going to go higher, but that's not a relevant thing. Profit potential is not the number one focus of a crypto trader. Saving your capital is, and you don't enter this high up. And even if it demonstrates that the price action is going to continue going up, this is not the position to be in. It's just not the position to be in. And if Bitcoin retraces, you could be stuck out of this position for a long time. So with these setups, you have to be patient, and you have to come in at an appropriate point. And if you miss it, then that's it. You miss it and you move on to another trade. You don't chase it. So let me know your thoughts in the comments about this sort of setup, because this is kind of the problem with crypto. It's very much higher Arcis drone. It's very difficult to trade crypto, because not necessarily because the TA is any different to any other asset class, but the emotions are. When you're dealing with highly volatile assets, which is not Forex, which is not traditional stocks, maybe natural gas, you have a lot of emotional fervor going around you at all times. And when you see green candles, you automatically think, well, I wish I had been in on that. But the reality is that in order to get in on those, you have to essentially be in the asset before the move, right? And that's what you have to approach that. And if you do miss it, then don't worry. There is plenty of others, as have been demonstrated over the last few days. I don't actually have some of the other winning picks here because I've closed them all down. But it's very important in crypto to come in exactly where is appropriate, which is essentially down here or down here, not chasing green. If you miss the move, live to fight another day. But I just wanted to talk about that. Let's have a look at the comments. Hi, Paul. Stoked to be here. What is your view on the uptick in Bitcoin dominance? Right. Oh, James is with us. Great to see you, James. Thanks for joining us. You must be very tired after a hard day of streaming. So yeah, let's have a look at Bitcoin dominance before we get in, because you might think, well, show me Bitcoin. But the reality is that Bitcoin dominance probably has a bigger impact on the rest of the market than anything else does. So let's just find Here we go. So what was the question again? What is your view of the uptick in Bitcoin dominance? Right. Yeah. So look, this is the 4-hour chart for Bitcoin dominance. So it is obviously an intermediate time frame, and all of this green going down is essentially the altcoin market expanding, or rather growing at an increased rate compared to the rest of compared to Bitcoin, essentially. Now, when you're seeing a lot of gold and this is going upwards, that's essentially Bitcoin season. And when it's going down, that is money essentially, either the altcoin market is outpacing Bitcoin, or it's growing in proportion compared to Bitcoin. That made no sense, but you get the idea. However, we obviously do need to have resets every now and again. So we did, all of this kind of stopped, and then we had this uptick in Bitcoin dominance. Now this occurred because of the ambiguity following FOMC and Bitcoin selling off. A little bit. Let's just call it retracing. I don't want to use this hyperbolic language which the media uses, but it's just having a natural retrace, a natural sell-off. Sellers took control for a little bit. Now, when that happens, when you see Bitcoin essentially stopping its uptrend, at least on the intermediate trend, and then moving down, then there's a few days, a few weeks where traders for altcoins and investors are like, well, this isn't a great time to enter an altcoin long, because ultimately the market hasn't settled yet. Bitcoin keeps going down, and therefore I'm not going to enter an altcoin long position until Bitcoin bases out, find its feet, and then shows sign of reversing. Now, this has now started to happen, and this was where Bitcoin was ascending lower, where people were not entering their positions as much, despite some tokens and tokens moving. That's great. But now what's happening is we haven't had the best organic price movement from Bitcoin, which is also a little bit scary, because if you think of Bitcoin going up naturally, very gently, a higher high, a higher low, a higher high, a higher low across a couple of days periods, then that's something you can manage, and it shows stability in the market. But because Bitcoin has essentially shot up like a rocket with loads of green candles on the higher time frames, it's very difficult to trade that, because ultimately you can say to yourself, well, if Bitcoin retraces a little bit, I'll come in at this level. But because it's come up so high and so quickly, it's like a house of cards. And then altcoin investors therefore are a bit more cautious about coming in, because we don't know where how much Bitcoin's going to retrace to yet. So even though this double top on Bitcoin dominance looks like it's probably going to play out, which means that if we get a break of this neckline and we get this lower low, the altcoin fun should continue to proceed across the higher caps and then some of the mid caps. But we haven't seen that yet. And if we turn to Bitcoin now, ultimately, let me just get that poll off. Are you bullish on BTC at this level? I'm going to say no. Just clear that out of the way. Okay. So to further the point about Bitcoin dominance, let's have a look. So this is essentially when Bitcoin dominance is rising. okay, over the last few days. Again, always Bitcoin dominance is hiding. So this is Bitcoin dominance going up, not good for altcoin trading, because ultimately Bitcoin is, again, Bitcoin was doing this, it was going down. But now Bitcoin is going up again. That's great, but it's going up too quickly, ultimately. And because it's going up too quickly, Bitcoin dominance isn't responding in the best way for altcoins, because still altcoin investors are not entering their positions, because Bitcoin is like a house of cards at the moment. It could just tip over at any point. So what we need to see for Bitcoin dominance to be a little bit more supportive of altcoins, break that neckline, confirm a lower low, is for Bitcoin to stop doing this and to essentially give us a nice healthy retest, give us something like a double bottom or something, and then this is a great place for people to then come in, and you'll see then Bitcoin dominance respond in kind. But likewise, if we get too much of a quick and steep retrace too quickly, maybe something like this, right, then that will also spook the market, and you'll likely see Bitcoin dominance ascend higher again. So there is a very narrow set of circumstances which are good for altcoin trading, and that essentially is Bitcoin with a bullish posture, but not going too fast, going nice and steady, and giving us all these reversal patterns all the way up from the different levels. Right now, you'll notice like this local resistance level, Bitcoin has not retested on the flip side. So 115 hasn't been tested as support yet. Likewise, we haven't had 118 tested as support yet. It didn't even touch that. So we've just broken through these levels, and we do need, of course, to see some more organic price action as opposed to all of this. Because when I see stuff like this, you know, I think manipulation, I think fervor, and that's not the easiest thing to trade off. So I hope that answers your question about Bitcoin dominance, MD. And there's another question. Bitcoin has broken above 118 and confirmed the breakout. If a retrace comes, buying near 118 or adding there looks like a good opportunity. Okay, so obviously 118 is a line in the sand to look potentially to enter. But if you look at this from a scaling in point of view, because if you come in here, that's pretty high risk, because again, you've noticed that there's levels below us at 115, my friend, that haven't yet been tapped. Now, that doesn't mean that Bitcoin can't ascend higher from here, but the higher it goes, the risk increases, and the probability of a stronger retrace, which is going to catch everybody out, increases. So, excuse me. So you might want to think of a scaling in strategy. If you're trying to get into Bitcoin, you can add 20, 25% E position here, see how it interacts with that level. If it can come down further, you can then, of course, add your position here as well. So you can scoop up the price action depending on where it goes. And if you do enter here, you're offsetting the risk of further retrace because you're coming in quite high with a smaller position. And this is the way you should approach it. And then the closer Bitcoin gets to lower levels, then the more you can add to your position until eventually you catch the scoop and away you go. That's the way I would do it, because ultimately this is making everyone think FOMO, fear of missing out, right? And that's why you'd think, well, 118 seems the most logical level to come in, and it may very well be, but ultimately you've got to think what Bitcoin's got to do next. There's going to be a load of sellers up here that is still in a massive order block right now, and all we need is a little bit of bad news, and this is going to come crashing all the way back down, maybe all the way down to these moving averages. So try and be cautious here. And if you do see Bitcoin finding its feet at 118 and it stayed there for a few days, maybe printed a double bottom or an inverse head and shoulders, then great, look to enter. But always look for confirmation. And when Bitcoin isn't giving us the necessary signals we need, because it's just not touching the levels organically, it is a waiting game. But we do have a double top on the RSI, which is suggesting that the price action is going to cool off and that sellers are taking control. And then just wait and see. You'll notice, of course, that I have this box just below 118 to catch any kind of wicks which come down, because there's a lot of levels which the price action could come back down to and need to be retested. So 118 is definitely the first line in the sand, but it may not be the last line in the sand, as Bitcoin probably needs to come back down, well, 50%, 40% retrace at least to bring in enough buyers to continue upwards. But of course, you know, and again, if you think about this, if Bitcoin does come all the way to all-time highs and breaks it, well, what are you going to do? It's too high up. You can't come in. And it's the same principle we were talking about with SNX at the beginning. Okay, so you didn't come in down here and you want to get into Bitcoin, then you just need to wait. You just need to wait at least till we see some more price action. And with SNX, it's going to take something special for me to come in around here. Maybe this is the equivalent of 118K with Bitcoin, and I'm going to need to see something. So maybe I need to see a W pattern and then a break of that W pattern, and then I'll be looking to come in. That's great. But until I see something like that, I'm calling this distribution, and this is your market cycle bell curve. and we're coming back down ultimately. So you've got to be very cynical with Bitcoin and the crypto market, especially when it's doing stuff like this, because this is a manageable, tradable move at every way step up. This is not. Man, let's have a look at the questions. Well, I have some coffee. BlackRock bought 1 million BTC, 1 billion BTC. Good on them. Will a drop in Bitcoin actually assist the altcoins to rally? Yeah. Sol, let's put Sol on the list. Yeah, because you got to think about trading mentality. Let's look at me as a trader, right? I'm looking to enter an altcoin position. I'm not going to enter it now. Bitcoin's too high up, so I need it to retrace. So it's the whole market needs, of course, Bitcoin to retrace to provide an entrance. 118 is the first line, and then you've got obviously 115 underneath that, and 113 and a half to 100. I need to just check that. Let's have a look. But this whole area with these moving averages between about 113, 112 and a half. So yeah, absolutely. Because what is going to make buyers enter the market? I don't enter long positions when Bitcoin is cooking on the RSI. I don't do that, right? Why would I? Because ultimately, it doesn't matter if I enter. It doesn't matter if Dogecoin is in the perfect place to enter. I mean, let's just find a setup as an example. So here you go. This is Pith, right? So this is Pith. Hasn't broken out yet properly. Now, I could come in here. Maybe if there's a little breakout, I can come in here. But ultimately, Bitcoin is so high up that it's so likely that it's going to retrace, that it's going to push this all the way back down to here. And I know this. So my first possible entrance for Pith is going to be flush with the moving average. And we're not there yet, which means it's a waiting game, because ultimately, Bitcoin goes up from here. Okay, so it touches all-time highs. Pith does this, and then it starts selling off. And then we're back down to this moving average again, and I've got no profits. So when you see Bitcoin high up, you do have to wait. It is a waiting game. Can be a little bit frustrating. Certainly when there's not a lot of short opportunities, because the market is typically so bullish. So yeah, it will assist the altcoin rally. We do need Bitcoin to be a little bit more calmer than it has been. Right, let's have a quick look at Sol. I haven't got a chart of Sol at the moment. Let's see if I've got a chart of Sol. Let's just load it up. Let's have a quick look at Sol. Let's see what Sol's doing. I've got some interesting charts to look at as well with regard to altcoins, which will hopefully answer that question a bit more. Oh, here's Sol. Right, okay. Where's the best entry for Sol, MD? Right, so yeah. So based on the technicals of Sol, now we've talked about this, I think, last week. There we go. Just checking the live stream's okay. This is an ascending channel. It has a 70 to 80% chance of a break to the downside, ignoring whatever is going on in the market right now. This is previous sort of local highs at the start of the year. Sol is making a good recovery, but ultimately we've broken down following Bitcoin's retrace over the last couple of weeks, and now we're putting in simply a bearish retest, a lower high of the upper channel. So typically it's a shorting opportunity now based on these charts, right? And if Bitcoin does ascend higher from here and touches all-time highs, then sure, Sol might do this, right? Sol might go against probabilities, go back in this pattern and ascend a little bit higher, but you're then running into red. So there's not much profit potential. So again, you have to wait for Bitcoin to come down. And this remains for Sol the best area at around 180. Now, if obviously the market turns, if Bitcoin does find its feet at a higher level, like 118, then of course you may want to look to come in at Sol at the top end of this range. It may be 190. But if Bitcoin is showing signals that it's going to sell off a little bit deeper, back down to 113K sort of area with those key moving averages on the daily, the 50, then you can say to yourself, I'm going to come in a little bit lower of this little support range at around 176 and adjust based on that. So yeah, Sol still 180, this sort of zone between 190, 170 is the ideal based on TA at the moment. And obviously Bitcoin is supporting that because it's got a bit of a retrace. So that's the way you need to approach it ultimately. No problem. Right, let's have a look at some more setups. If you haven't already checked out the altcoin picks video, which is out every Thursday, I encourage you to go and do that. Like, share, and subscribe. Okay, so yeah, let's look at Ether as well. So I'll come back to W in a minute. Let's have a look at Ether. So this is firstly Ether versus Bitcoin, and it's been outpacing Bitcoin for a while. And obviously, this is reflective of the altcoin market ultimately. And Ether is no longer outpacing Bitcoin, but it's trying to, of course, continue on its way. And this will be another signal. So say, for example, this is quite an important line in the sand. If you look at this as a topping pattern, maybe a head and shoulders pattern, If we can get Ethereum over a Bitcoin pair to ascend higher, then that would maybe demonstrate that Ethereum is going to start to outpace Bitcoin again, which is your signal for the rest of the altcoin market. And you'll probably see Bitcoin dominance head down from then. So whether you're looking at total 3, total 2, Bitcoin dominance, Ethereum versus Bitcoin is also a very good barometer to the health of the altcoin market. And if Ethereum versus Bitcoin, the Ethereum Bitcoin versus Bitcoin, it's like a fight. If it does something like this, then you'll see, of course, that probably the bearish scenario for this pairing is over, and that the altcoin market is going to follow Ethereum with the money as well. Thank you, Lola, for watching the video. I appreciate the support. But Ethereum in itself, principally, has obviously broken out on this triangle. This is a 3-day, a higher time frame, and this is still remains the ideal buy zone for Ethereum, or rather at around 3650. Now, we have had a significant move up following Bitcoin's recent recovery, and it kind of looks like this. And you'll see that Ethereum has quite successfully, in the process of flipping this resistance zone to support. Now, I'm not going to turn this to green just yet, because I want to see if for me to turn this resistance zone to support, I want to see Ethereum surpass this level. Until it does that, that remains red, because again, as we've talked about, if Bitcoin heads down, Ethereum's just going to go through this like shaving cream and come back down maybe to the point of control for a bit of support. So Ethereum is recovering. It is trying to recover this key level at the moment, but this remains the area to come in on. And until we kind of see Ethereum, well, let's just say until Ethereum surpasses this high, then I'm not going to reevaluate this as the best area to come in on. That is quite high up, of course, but this is a very volatile market, and you'll always, when you've got a lot of bullish momentum in the market, it's very easily to think, well, it's not coming back here. It's going to come in here, the whole 118K thing with Bitcoin, which is a possibility, of course, but you got to just be very hesitant, be very skeptical, and draw lines in the sand and think, okay, this is still resistance in my mind, unless Bitcoin can surpass this previous high, Ethereum can pass this high, and then, of course, and then if Ethereum does perhaps come back down to this support at around 4K, then, and it bases out with a W pattern or something, then, okay, I'll be like, all right, 3650, nah, that's gone. Okay, that's probably not going to come back down to it, but we're not there yet. So it is obviously the probabilities of it coming back down to 3650 are, of course, reducing now because Ethereum's come up, right? So that's a reality. It's certainly less probable. It was more probable when Bitcoin was here, but nonetheless, this is an extremely volatile asset. And Ethereum, if you think Ethereum can't just crash all the way back down to here in a few hours, it can. Right, so just be really cautious, and this is still an overextension, and this area would certainly, and this area certainly you want to wait for an entrance. But yeah, so be a bit grumpy with these assets for sure. Let's have a look. So what do you think about Ethereum? Yeah, so that's it. Oh, congratulations, Loda, for your successful trade on ADA. Let me know what you did. I'd be interested to see how that played out. But let's have a look at Wormhole. Now, Wormhole is an example of an altcoin which hasn't popped yet. We've got a golden cross. It's featured in 2 altcoin picks so far. Now, this is excellent sort of altcoin to look at right now, because even if Bitcoin, because it hasn't made a move. So say, for example, W had made a move and it come all the way up here, and you're thinking of entering, say you're thinking of entering here if it comes back. You know Bitcoin's really high up. So Bitcoin is, if Bitcoin retraces, it's going to push this all the way back down, right? Because it's a low cap, it's extremely volatile. So the fact that Wormhole is down here is great, because even if Bitcoin retraces, there's not a lot of buyers wanting to take profits yet because they haven't entered their positions. So Bitcoin retracing might just allow you to get a nice entrance with the 50 or the 200, and then wait, of course, for the next bullish move. Or if we do get a breakout from W, you can use any retrace from Bitcoin to come back down. So W is still a great token to look at, and you really want to be probably any kind of tapping of this area at around what's that, 0.0965, as close to these moving averages you can get, would be a great front running position to wait, of course, until this does pop, because when it does pop, it will move, as you can see. So this is a lot easier to enter an altcoin position in things like this which haven't moved yet compared to, say, SNX, because the probabilities are still in your favor, and because there's not a lot of people looking to take profits yet because they haven't entered their positions, or they're waiting. Even if Bitcoin retraces, you're not going to have like 100% retrace from SNX. If that happens, it's just going to come back down, give you another entrance before it pops. So these are the sort of things you want to be looking at to enter them before they've made the move, right? And that takes a bit of faith, that takes a bit of appreciation. But ultimately, if you're coming in at this level and the market crashes, you know you're going to get that bearish retest. So you've got plenty of options to get out of. But if wormhole's all the way up here and you're trying to enter a position here and Bitcoin takes a tumble, then it's going to come back down here and you'll be stuck out your position for months. And that's just not what we want to do. Emily, with the altcoins, what is the length of a medium-term hold? Typically 1 to 2 months. We are in that territory, but we haven't got any of the problem is some of the low caps are popping, because if you think about the amount of investments, the amount of money and capital liquidity which needs to come in to make these moves, it doesn't take much. So you have just a couple of people put a little bit too much money at these positions, it pumps the whole market, and then everyone tries to chase it. But so the medium caps, as I'm going to talk about in a moment, a lot of them haven't popped yet, because they require more money to do that and more confidence from the out of the market to do that. So we're seeing, quite paradoxically, some of the low caps and the ultra low caps popping because people are looking to enter positions, but probably buying a little bit too much and moving the market by themselves. Whereas what we really want to see is some more consistent movements from the Bitcoin market, and Bitcoin wants to resolve in its way. So some of that money from Ethereum can start piling into the other altcoins, and then you'll be entering some medium cap tokens, and then you'll be waiting maybe 6 to 8 weeks, and maybe they can give you 50 to 100% sort of gains on top of that, which is a lot more manageable than these rapid pumps, which come in from some of these low caps. So it is a bit of a difficult game at the moment, but this is the territory we're trying to enter at the moment. But 6 to 8 weeks. I mean, I remember the last bull cycle. You know, I mean, back then I was trading more BTC pairs because tether pairs weren't such a big thing. So I remember there's a MDT trade which was over 100%. I think it's about 10k. I put 10k down, and within 3 weeks it was 11k. I over doubled my money, and that was simply by holding a small to mid cap for that period. And that's the easiest way to make money in crypto. It is essentially coming down, buying in these accumulation zones, and then just waiting for it to pop. If you're going to be chasing it, then again, that's kind of the retail amateur hour sort of thing. So we've got to be very Tree. Let's have a look at Tree. Yeah, I was thinking of Tree. Okay. Yeah. So Tree is. Let's have a look at Tree. Have we still got Tree around? Yeah. So Tree is not a mid cap. It's obviously highly volatile. Now the issue is with Tree that we've since lost support. So we're in this negative price discovery, which isn't particularly helpful, because until we get a recovery from Tree, not a lot of buyers are going to come in. So ultimately what buyers are waiting for from Tree is the solid move up from here, and then maybe Tree will start being tasty again. But with Tree, with these low caps, you're only going to be entering very small amounts of capital into these. You're not going to be laying down 10k on Tree, right? It's going to be, you know, the way I would play it is, you know, I would be looking at much smaller positions, sub 1k sort of positions, maybe half that, and then just putting them in with some of these assets which are in accumulation, and then hoping you get a move like this. But Tree is extremely high risk, so it has to be a very small position. But it's lost the narrative now, unfortunately, because it's very susceptible to the pressure from Bitcoin. So as always, as I said when we talked about Tree the first time, if Bitcoin does come back down, we could see Tree come into negative price discovery, and that's exactly what's happened. But I did have a nice trade with Tree. I got in here, and then I exited here. But I obviously wasn't hanging around with Tree, because with these low caps, you don't want to be just, because you don't want to be just, I don't want to stay in this position here hoping for maybe to come up to this level or this level, because if I see Bitcoin taking a tumble or a Bitcoin at resistance or whatever, then I'm going to exit my position and lock in profits. So yeah, Tree, not the best example potentially of a midterm hold in the grand scale of things, because it's only going to be a very small position, right? So it might give you some serious gains, but you just can't risk too much capital on it. So if you put maybe $250 on it and it goes up, you know, 100%, then that's a really easy double your money. But you got to be very careful in terms of risk with these things. So the market cap is important. For ADA, I bought it. Okay, well done, good, very impressive. That shows a lot of discipline, Lola, and that's exactly what you need to be. You know, you have to, when you're looking at these things, like with Tree, right? You've got to be disciplined. Or rather, let's look at Egan. Is Egan still around? See if we can find Egan, because this was my last futures trade a few days ago this week. So let's just load up Egan and let's have the conversation about this. because it's quite an interesting topic. Egan, here we go. Okay, so yeah, so Egan had the narrative, it had the volume, it had the bullish momentum, and my trade was essentially just a move between these 2 points, right? Ultimately, right, is a very is I suppose a not an intraday scalp, but it was a very short-term trade. So I get in at support, right, roundabouts. The reality of this trade was, I've got to look at the figures, but I was coming in at this level here, but the price action did dip. I think it was this area here I came in on, and we did get a little bit of a dip. Didn't invalidate my trade just yet, because I was looking at the market and there's other potential signals I was getting, as you can see with the RSI. But I took profits about here, right? Got in here, took profits here because I was looking at Bitcoin, I was looking at the market in general, and the fact that Egan hadn't quite managed to find its feet and move up with gusto. I recognize this. I recognize that there's still a lot of bullish momentum. There's a lot of people looking to enter it, but it was waning a little bit. So, and because Bitcoin dominance was also giving me a variety of different signals, I wasn't quite getting the weather conditions I needed for a midterm hold. I'm in here, I get out here, and that's it. And look what happened. Egan sells off as a result. And despite it's having a bit of a recovery now, it's not really tradable anymore because the attention is elsewhere. So the decision I made, and I don't always make the best decisions, but that was a good decision because only a few candles later, a day later, Egan then rolls over. So it's very important, as Lola demonstrated with the ADA trade, to have a very clear perspective. This is the market at the moment. There's a lot of hesitancy and concern. So I'm going to look to capitalize on this very small move. I'm going to get in here and get out here. And even if it goes up from here, or even if I think it's going to go up from here, that doesn't matter because all I want is this trade, this amount of profit, get in, get out, I've won, right? The people who wait and come down and are still holding down here thinking it's going to recover, or are coming to Egan essentially at this point thinking, well, we're up for another move up. Well, again, where's Bitcoin? What if Bitcoin comes down from where it is, which is very likely? Egan again is going to come down. So you've got to be very disciplined. You've got to recognize the market and don't hang around if you're getting the signals which suggest that it's not an ideal place to hold this more than the range you're trading in. And that's why I had a successful trade. It was a 30% trade in about a day, with Egan with 3x leverage, really straightforward. So you got to read the market appropriately. Let's have a look. Right. So yeah, what did I want to show you? Well, we're going to look at another couple of setups. Right, so this is apt. This was a altcoin pick from yesterday. Okay, look at AVAX in a sec. Put that on my list. Thanks, everyone. Really interesting tokens to have a look at. So this is apt. Again, another one which is right at the bottom, right? Very manageable in terms of your entrances. Now, we're having a breakout at the moment, and I was thinking about entering this one today or putting a position on for this, but I haven't yet because this breakout is not strong enough yet. It's just not strong enough. And the reason why it's not strong enough is because there's not enough people entering because Bitcoin is so high up because they know it could retrace. So I would need to see apt to come up a little bit higher, surpass that previous swing high, and then look to come in on this zone. Still in play, but of course, with Bitcoin the way it is, I can imagine apt coming all the way back down into this pattern again. So you've got to be very cautious. So therefore, if you think about what's 40% retracement from this move, it's back into the pattern. Whereas if apt is all the way up here, what's 40% retracement? It's down to this area. Perfect. So you need to ask yourself what you need to see. And the higher high, surpassing this previous level, that will bring me people to the market. So this is the kind of the way I trade and what I'm looking for. So I didn't look at apt today. That's not that's not the play I'm looking at. And the same with Asta. Asta has had a breakout. This was a lovely retest, bullish retest after the altcoin picks yesterday of this little pocket. So I have actually missed my ideal entrance. But of course, if this ascends a little bit higher from here, then this area does become quite nice. But the kind of opportunity has been missed for that now. But what's the one I'm looking at? I can't even remember now. What was the trade I was looking at? That's crazy. I've entered it today. Oh, here it is. It was C98. Okay. So I can't even remember what I'm trading. So C98, you see I've got all this set up with my liquidation point and my my buy-in. So this C98 has had a stronger breakout, right? And we've got the 200 MA on the daily chart, really nice and flush with this upper triangle, making this zone a really great place for buyers to enter. And because we have clearly had a lot of volume, we've clearly surpassed all of these previous highs, a lot of people are going to come into the market now. And if Bitcoin does retrace, we've got this cushion. We've got this cushion essentially. So if Bitcoin does come down, it will pull C98 down, but not against me, in my favor, because I want it to come back down. And this is my limit order already on for a 2x leverage trade, I think. Why is it 2x and not 3x? Because if it's 3x, you'll see my liquidation point will be way too high. This is already making me a little bit nervous, but it is, of course, below any point the price has been, so it's okay. But yeah, so this is C98 is the one I've decided to enter over the other ones we looked at. And you, as altcoin traders or as crypto traders, need to be doing the same thing, right? You have a selection to choose from. You look at what is appropriate for the market at the moment, what affords Bitcoin the room it needs to do what it needs to do without invalidating your trade. And this is why I chose C98. Now, this could still invalidate, but it gives me a better chance than some of the others, which have so far had some meager breakouts, which could all come all the way back down here if Bitcoin crashes. Right, let's have a look. So we had to look at XRP, AVAX. So let's have a look at XRP. This was a altcoin pick yesterday as well, crypto OG. So we so very straightforward with XRP. We want to see a breakout. Ideally, you want to see the move again past this swing high. So you want to see it come up essentially above around 3.16. And then if you can get that, then this little pocket here, which is essentially a flush with the 618, and this diagonal trend line on the flip side, you can see my little green arrow. That is what, 2.92, essentially $3, right? So $3, essentially just 2.9, right? Would be a lovely place to come in on if you get the price action you want. And that's the key. This is the key. I can't tell you right now that XRP is going to bounce at 3 because we haven't had the confirmation we need yet for that premise to be accepted. Because obviously right now, if it comes down to 3, it's going to be stuck below this pattern again and stuck below resistance. So you have to see something from XRP first. We have to see this, and then we need to see this, right? And then that becomes a nice little pocket to enter on. Not because it's guaranteed, but because we've suddenly got then support, right? And then this nice safety net below us for maybe a stop loss. And that's how you want it to be. Right now, not a great play. So it's not about $2.9 now. It's about, it could be $2.9 in a couple of days if XRP does this. And that's the way you need to look at it. Because again, what happens if Bitcoin retraces, right? Now, XRP is a high cap, so it can absorb a lot of that downwards momentum, but it's a case of it will be $2.9 as a nice entrance if you get a significant move upwards from here, and then you come in on the retrace. So the breakout entry essentially of this smaller head and shoulders pattern for XRP. But I haven't looked at AVAX in a while. And thanks for all the questions. These are pretty cool. A lot of people interested. That's what we want. AVAX. Have I got an AVAX chart? Yeah, there's one from this month. So let's have a look. This is probably up to date. Okay, so a few options with AVAX. We've broken out of this ascending triangle. This was actually a top altcoin. This was actually an altcoin pick, which has actually hit its price targets, which I haven't actually made a note of to tell everybody about, to gloat. But so yeah, we've had a strong breakout of. We didn't get the entry one, which we wanted, which was essentially a retrace back down to this little pocket. But we did get the breakout, and we did have a nice retest of this zone. So if you did. But you notice the retest came after we've hit our price target. So not an easy trade, this, because it moved a little bit too fast. But you need to look at this as we've had a nice breakout and you just want it to come back down. You can see there's a nice order block in this zone, and we've got these moving averages sweeping in. So for me, honestly, you know, in terms of TA, 26.63, if we get the retrace, it is pretty nice. But again, it's time dependent, because ultimately this 50 moving average, we want it to be flush with this to add a bit of confluence, and then we can get this coming up as well. And then if the price action comes back down like this, say at the end of the month, right? Perfect. But it's about context. Context is important. If AVAX just drops down right now, then it's still okay. It's still good. But you have to bear in mind that this 50 is getting away from this entrance area a little bit, and you don't want it to get stuck below it like that. And get stuck. So you've got to be very cautious. But I would say that this zone in general for AVAX between about 27 and 25 is pretty safe in terms of risk management, because as we've talked about, even if you enter here and the market just crashes, you've got this as support coming in. So you're going to get that bearish retest, which will give you an exit. So yeah, AVAX, a few opportunities. Nothing's perfect with AVAX. We've kind of missed that perfect pocket, but it seems like it's going to come back down, and it seems like because it's giving us organic price action, we could see some kind of double bottom or something, which you can trade off with a little bit more of assurance. So yeah, AVAX, plenty of opportunities, but it's this zone which you want to be looking at for sure. How do you manage your time between trades? I closed one yesterday, but I'm already thinking about looking for another. I really want to, but I don't want to let anxiety take over. Okay. The best way I can answer this, that's a really great question. That's a really, really great question. And this is ultimately the sort of conversations these live streams should really be about, because ultimately you can look at the top altcoin picks video and look at the setups. You can look at Bitcoin update. You can hear my take on Bitcoin. But ultimately, this is where the juice is. Because it's all about in here. Crypto trading is all about in here and your mentality and your mindset. So I'm not going to get into the details of it. I think it was probably quite impressive. It's one of my proudest achievements as a trader when I did 10 trades in a row and essentially compounded the profits, turning $100 into $6,600 in 7 weeks. Now, I haven't been able to replicate that since, because the discipline it required of me to do that, it was like a training for the Olympics. And the way I would approach it, to answer your question, Lola, is I would do one trade, and no matter whether there was other setups ready to go, I would take 2 or 3 days off. I would do yoga, I would walk out, I'd go to the beach, I would get perspective, regardless of whether there's a setup ready to go. And then I would reevaluate the market from scratch a few days later, look for other plays. And then when I was ready, whether it's a day later or a week later, I then enter my second trade, which is why these 10 trades took 7 weeks. And I repeat the process. I'd have my successful trade. And even if I had a good setup to go, I would force myself to at least have a couple of days off, right? No matter what. And then go back and reevaluate the market. Because when you come off a good trade, you're still feeling emotional. You're feeling like a king. You're feeling like you can't lose because you've just won. And therefore, the most important thing is to get rid of that emotion, because it's not just about I want. It's not about greed. It's totally about, resetting your mind. So you're like, okay, it's been 3 days. The party over winning that trade is gone, is died down in my mind. And now I'm sitting fresh without any of that greed or that confidence. And I'm looking again at the market with skepticism. And I'm looking at the market in a way that I'm reminding myself that people are trying to take my money. And I ultimately need to be cautious. And it resets my mindset. And then that allows me to have another successful trade. But I can guarantee you, if I try to do 10 successful trades in 10 days, I won't be able to do it. There's just no way. There's just no way. Not because there's not necessarily going to be 10 trade setups, but because my mind as a human being, my emotions just can't cope with it. And I'll slip up. I'll be like, well, what if I just leave it till this take profit? And then I'll screw up and I'll get liquidated or I'll get stopped out or whatever. So yeah, it's you've got to be very disciplined. And any trader who is telling you that they're doing 6 or 7 trades a day in crypto, I'm like, they're either a much better person than me, right, some kind of superhero, or they're on the road to crashing and burning quite significantly. BTC has broken above 118k and confirmed the breakout. It retrace comes buying 118 or adding there. Looks like a good opportunity. Yeah. Sorry, is that? Yeah. Well, I think I covered this. Let's just have a look again at Bitcoin. So as we were just talking about, look, this is obviously the first area to come in on. 118k is the first area right now to come in on, but you're still overextended. Bitcoin hasn't touched base with local resistance yet at 115. It hasn't retested it. So you've got to be cautious. You're not going to come in with your whole position here, certainly. You need to come in maybe with 20% your position, intended position, presuming you're going to get a retrace. And then, of course, if it does continue up from here, then great. You're in profit of less of your position, but you haven't lost anything. And if you do come in at 118k or that kind of zone with small amount of your position and it does retrace, then okay, there's no big deal. And if you do come in lower with an additional 25%, if it just comes back up, you're gonna break. Here's the thing about scaling in, right? So let's just say you enter 20% of your position here, and then the Bitcoin comes back down like this, and you're like, oh no. But then you enter another 20% of your position here. All you need Bitcoin to do to be able to exit your position, both these positions at no loss, is you need Bitcoin to come up to the halfway point, right? Because then you'll have profit from this position, which offsets the loss from this one, meaning you can then exit at a lower point where your first position was, which essentially is excellent risk management, which is why scaling in is such a underrated strategy in terms of managing your positions, because it just gives you more options when things go wrong. A lot of my long-term positions, I have the majority of them in really good positions, but I have a couple of small positions which are too high up. But if I do decide to get out of those tokens prematurely or early, I can do it at no loss because of profit from lower positions, without the price action having to ascend to, say, the first point I got in, which in the context of this conversation for Bitcoin will be 118K. So yeah, be very cautious, right? Be very cautious. Just remind yourself, this is what I say to yourself. So where was Bitcoin's price on the 27th of September, which was just a week ago? It was at 110K. It is now at 120K. So could Bitcoin come all the way back down to 110K in the same amount of time? Yes, right? So caution, totally advised, and look at it based on what is the ideal place to come in on for Bitcoin. And I would argue that it's here, and then work back from there. If you feel that Bitcoin is going up, you've had data points and so forth, which you think suggest that it's not going to retrace that much, then fine, but scale in at the higher levels and have a little bit of control over what you do. Hope that answers your question. Sorry if I'm being a little bit a bit grumpy about 118K, but I'm trying to, of course, instill this level of discipline because the crypto market takes no prisoners. Right, so let me show you this chart, because we've been going on for a little bit, and I'm gonna keen to let you all go and have some weekend fun. So in terms of the money flow and the altcoin season, this chart is kind of reflective of where we are at the moment, right? And again, thanks for everyone's questions. It's been really interesting things to talk about. And I'm glad people have been having some successful trades. So keep the comments coming. So this is multi-time frame analysis with a few of the relevant tokens. So we've got Bitcoin 1 month, we've got XRP 1 month, we've got ZEC, which has started to make some moves. We had some great profits from that. Litecoin, ADA, and VET. Now, what do you see? Right? You see Bitcoin having broken out of its 100% fib range and moving up. You see XRP, which is, again, Crypto OG, one of the top tokens with Ethereum. It has done the same. It has followed Bitcoin, and it is up essentially the same sort of position. Now, the money has not yet trickled down to the majority of the rest of the market. So ZEC has started to make its move, but you can see it's nowhere near where Bitcoin and XRP were. Litecoin hasn't made a move yet. ADA hasn't made a move yet. VET hasn't made a move yet. But all of them are following very similar patterns. Look at these. The fibs are exactly the same moves. And this kind of shows what we'll see. ZEC is now moving. Then we might see ADA move and then VET move. So what do you want to be trading? Do you want to be trading this? Or do you want to be trading this with all this potential, right? Or coming in here and getting all of this potential, right? That's what you have to ask yourself, which is why I don't trade Bitcoin very often. Bitcoin is a barometer, and I use it to negotiate other altcoins which have yet to move yet, because the ideal place to buy Bitcoin was essentially between about 25 and 30K. And I remember the time when it was happening, and that's the ideal place to buy ultimately. Up here, even though I believe Bitcoin has got plenty of room to go up, right? What gains is it going to give me? So it goes to, I don't know, 220K. It's just doubling my money. That's just not enough for me. That's just not enough. Whereas if I come in at VET, right, as an example, before it makes its move, then here we go. VET could give me, for the same move, 600%. And therefore, that's what I'm looking for. So, you know, this is my approach, and this is probably quite indicative of what the market is illustrative of the market at the moment, and why that some of these, when we talk about midterm holds, as Emily was asking about earlier, you know, these huge like moves, 70-80% moves by ZEC, right, is nothing compared to what it can do. So, but you've got to be patient, right? You just got to be patient and then just wait for it to pop. And this is the crypto market, right? It's a game of not chasing when everyone is chasing, right? That's crypto. It's to have an edge, you have to be the one not chasing when everyone else is, right? Though, because there's people like me, there's other traders which have learned those lessons, and we're the ones being grumpy and skeptical, telling everybody, calm down, calm down, calm down. You know, okay, so you missed XRP, now coming at ZEC, right? And this is ultimately what you're going to be looking at. I mean, why are we looking at XRP, right? If I'm being really critical, why are we looking at XRP? It's made its move, right? You've missed your entrance point, right? Whereas these assets, you've got plenty of options to go. But just going back to Bitcoin before we finish, this is just multi-time frame, and just to highlight, of course, that if you are trying to figure out what Bitcoin is going to do, rack up these multi-time frames. I haven't labeled them, but this is 15, 30, 1 hour, 2 hour, 4 hour, 6 hour, 12 hour, and the daily. And you'll see on the 12 hour, on the 6 hour, on the 4 hour, on the 2, we're oversold. We're cooking, right? We're really cooking. And when you look at 118K, where's the RSI going to be when it's at that point, right? And where do you want to be entering your trades? Well, here's the daily chart. You can see when Bitcoin on the daily chart is at, pretty oversold around 30, that's where you want to be, right? We've got divergence coming up as well. So probably quite a significant retrace is what we're looking for. Now, that doesn't mean Bitcoin can't continue up from here, but the higher it goes, the more risk it is. Lola, yes, patience is key. Definitely something I need to work on myself. Well, we all need to. Any good token with breakout potential? Sure. Let's end on that for you, MD, my friend. So yeah, I mean, look, Apt is breaking out at the moment. We just need to see certain things. It's really low down. It's a really good play, right? We've got all of this range ahead of us. So Apt, APT, the chart is in the group and on the altcoin picks, so you can load that up yourself. You don't need to copy it. I've been posting all the charts again, like. That maybe not so much. Pith, again, it's got all this upside. You just got to find the right entrance and the right position. That's got a lot of breakout potential. C98 has broken out, but as you see, I'm going to look to trade this when it comes back down. So there's a lot of these, all of the altcoin setups really, which were released yesterday, are essentially breakout and retest plays, right? So check those out if you haven't already. And all the charts will be in the description, so you can load them up in your own trading view account and you don't have to rechart them. But yeah, so it is very much breakout season. But choose the one which suits you best. Apt is great because it's low down, right? So it's easy to manage in terms of risk. Whereas this is not so much, because we're just a little bit, we've had quite a strong move, and we could come all the way back down here. So, this is a little bit more risky. This is more like a bull flag play, whereas this is a breakout of consolidation range, and that's probably the better play. But I give you a selection ultimately to try and make sense of. So yeah, okay, really cool stuff. Let me just check I haven't missed anything in the comments. My coffee's gone cold again. I need to get some kind of heater on the side, or a little microwave, which probably the microphone won't like that. So yeah, thanks for everybody. Hang on a minute. I was just going to do something. I mustn't forget this, because I'm a stickler for things like this. So here we go. Let's just get that going. Okay, so thanks to everybody who had here today, and the more support you can show to the channel, the better, by sharing, liking, commenting as you have been, and turning up every week, because it is an absolute pleasure to answer your questions and look at some of your charts and hear some of your success stories. And even though I am talking about some issues some people have had this week, I think it's very important to discuss some of the problems which people have trading crypto, so we can learn to improve it going forward. So the next video from me will be on Tuesday with Bitcoin Update, which is your deep dive into the market to help you assess which of these tokens, which we talk about on Thursday with altcoin picks, are the best ones to trade. And just remember, you want to be lining up Bitcoin's charts and then assessing your altcoins through that lens. So is Bitcoin going to give me the moves I want to facilitate this trade? And if the answer is no, then I'm afraid it's going to be a waiting game. But that's crypto, and that's the way, as we talked about with my 10 trade challenge, you make the money. Patience, calm, and a little bit of grumpiness with crypto can really give you an edge, and you can quote me on that. But thanks for everyone joining us. It's been really great. Thanks for all the support, and we'll be doing this next week as well. But I'll see you all on Tuesday for Bitcoin Update. And if, of course, you are in the private group, then I'll see you over the weekend. If you're not in the private group, why are you not? Click the link in the description if you want to sign up. We'd just love to have you, because we had so many signups this week. It's getting quite exciting as the community is growing, and the advantage of having more people in the community is we have more setups, more ideas, and of course more questions to answer and to support people with. But that's it for now. I am Paul, of course, with ArcisFX. Best to everyone on the team, and I'll see you next week. Take care for now.